Okay, hi everyone. Let's start. My name is Ivan. I'm a technical artist in Unigine. So, as you know, today we're going to assemble some simple forest scene. And let's start. As you can see, I already have some prepared landscape. My name is Ivan. I'm a technical artist in Unigine. It's just based on some landscape layer maps from several of our projects, and there are two of them. First one is 300 by 300 meters. We will work exactly with this one, and the second one is just to fulfill our environment. It's 3000 by 3000 meters. So that's it. And I already have some detail masks on it and some details. We can see that, for example, if we select this first layer map, we can see that there are 4, as I remember, detail masks. And if we go inside of our landscape terrain object, we can see that we have 5 details here, but the first one, it just covers the whole terrain, so it acts like a base for the other details. And as you can see, every detail has its copy. Basically, both of these details absolutely the same, except one thing. The second one, the copy, has a different rotation, different angle. So it was made just to break the tiling on the terrain. So let's start with creating some mesh clutter. So go to main menu, create clutter, mesh clutter. Let's choose some trees. For example, I have here vegetation, pine tree, and let's choose this one. First thing we need to do is adjust our clutter size. So let it be 300 by 300, or maybe let's change it to 400 by x-axis to try to avoid the empty space between trees. And let's put it somewhere here. As you can see, we have a pretty bad transition between the first and the second layer maps, but it's absolutely enough for our today's case. What next? We need to put this mesh clutter inside of our terrain object, so it can intersect with the surface of our terrain. And right now we just need to disable and enable the intersection, and the trees will intersect properly with our terrain. So let's maybe decrease the density. Let it be 0.02, for example. Yeah, that's okay. We have a step here. This is a step size, and it's in units or meters, I don't know. Yeah, it's in meters. So basically, when you, we have some little hint here, cell size and units. Basically when you create a mesh clutter, it renders with some cells inside it. So it divided by cells, and the cell size is actually this step parameter. Artists usually don't change this number here. Only when we see the obvious, how to say, popping of the cells, we can change and tweak this parameter. But for now, let's just leave it like this, 50. And the threshold is, how to say, it refers to mask image. So let's just leave it with a 0 amount. We don't need this parameter, at least for now. What else? Here we have all of the surfaces of our mesh clutter, and we can tweak visibility distances for them. We can add some materials separately or simultaneously, and we can just do it manually, or we can go to Asset Browser. Sorry. Or we can go to Asset Browser, choose this FBX file, which we used to create this mesh clutter. It will be in props, vegetation, pine tree, and yeah, this one. Let's just disable the clutter for now. So as you can see, we have already assigned materials on this tree, and we have configured visibility distances here for each of our surfaces. We can just select all of them and press copy parameters to use inside of our mesh clutter. We can just paste parameters sequentially, and here we are. There's one little hack in this tree object. There's a terrain blend. It's a piece of geometry with material which has some additional parameter here inside it in the states. We can see terrain lerp. What it does, it just uses all of information of all buffers from terrain, normals, albedo, and so on and so forth. And so thus we can how to say, try to avoid a very rough transition between terrain and the tree trunk. So it's kind of a blending feature. So let's delete it. So here we go. And of course we don't want to render all of these trees, so they're all geometrical, and it will be a very bad idea to leave it like this. Let's try to create some imposters for this clutter. If you go to Tools, Imposter Creator, oh, sorry. Can't find it. I think I changed my layout and I can't find the imposter creator. Damn. We'll fix it right now. Let's save our world, close it. Sorry for that. Let's try again. Yeah, here we go. Sorry for that. When we open this imposter creator, we can see a set of parameters here, and these parameters, they all leads to baking a set of textures. I can, oh no, I can't show it right now because I need to bake it first. Okay, let me move it here. Okay. If we select our mesh clutter and just press create, it will bake some imposters with these default settings, but right now, and it will be pretty fine, but right now I want to bake them with the depth texture, and it will give us a much better result in case of lightning and shadows. But this feature, it's kind of heavy on your performance, so the set of these parameters strictly depends on your performance requirements. So let's try to use the depth texture, and a little bit later, when it's done, I will show you the difference between two modes, with or without this depth texture. And as you can see, we will be baking albedo texture, normal texture, translucence, and shading texture. These additional parameters with radial buttons, they were created just to imitate the light. And when you use the depth texture, you need to disable this, for example, SSAO for albedo. With SSAO, it means that SSAO will be baked inside the albedo texture, and we don't need that this right now because we're going to use the depth texture. So actually this is the most important one. And right here we have additional settings. The resolution of our texture, let it be 4K. Super sampling, let it be 2, because it will be a little bit faster. And aspect, when you want to bake imposters, for example, for something more like how to say, more proportional things with the same height and width, you can leave it like one by one, but right now we're going to bake our trees, and if you look on this tree, we can say that it definitely has 2 times higher height, bigger height than its width. So let's change it to 2 by 1, and these two numbers, they represent the number of the Atlas chunks horizontally and vertically. And as we don't want to, for example, for this particular project, we don't want to fly above our trees, our forest, we can use here 1 vertically and, for example, 16 horizontally. And let's use the padding at maximum amount. So let's press create, and we need to choose the folder for our imposter textures. For example, let's go to stream and create a folder here in clusters. Oh, sorry. And let's name it pine tree medium 2 imp. Okay. And right now we already have imposter object being created automatically and put inside of our object mesh clutter. So let's rename this object just to not mess everything here. Let's name it the clutter as pine tree med2 clutter, and we can leave the imposter with this name because it's just inside of this clutter, and we won't be confused with it. So right now we need to configure some visibility distances for imposters and for mesh clutter, because we don't want, as I said before, to render all of these geometrical trees. So let's try to set up the visibility distances for it. For example, I think if we used the depth texture when we bake the imposters, we can render the geometrical trees not too far from the camera. So let's disable the second LODs here for all of these surfaces. And we have 0 in the fade. What it does, it just this fade parameter just adds some smoother transitions between the LODs of our surfaces, of our trees. As you can see right now, they're just popping out. And let's try to add some fade. Maybe 2 meters will be enough. And maybe 5 meters here. And right now, as you can see, they slightly how to say, they disappear smoothly now. And as we said here, 20 meters for maximum visibility distance and 5 meters for fade. We can change, or we need to change, the visibility distance of our imposters to the same values, 20 and 5. So right now, as you can see, our imposters are a little bit flat right now. What we can do, we can go to material parameters of our imposter object, go to state, and right now we can see that depth map is on, but to see the difference between this parameter enabled or disabled, we need to set up the screen space shadows. So let's go to settings, shadows, and enable screen space shadows here. Let me move it a little bit. Yeah, and we need to enable enable the screen space shadows per object, per light. So let's go to sun parameters and enable the screen space shadows here. As you can see, the imposters started to look much better. And I can demonstrate to you how it will change if we disable the depth map. Of course, it won't look like that if you try to achieve a better result with all of these parameters. When you bake the imposters, try to add some SSAO, try to change normal or add some baked ale. But right now I'm happy how it looks, and let's just leave it here. And one more moment about the materials inside our imposter object. As you can see, when we move around the imposters, they're popping out to roughly. We can change it by enabling the lerp parameter here. And what it does, it just lerps between the nearest nearest chunks of this texture atlas. For example, for this chunk, it will be this and this one. But of course, it's well, not of course. It's kind of performance heavy too. It's this option is kind of maybe experimental, because it depends again on your performance requirements, and you need to be careful when you want to enable this lerp parameter. Sometimes maybe you won't need it at all, but for now, to better representation, let's leave it on. Okay, so let's try to see what we have here else. We can use the mask image to place our trees exactly where we want them to be, or if we want to erase some trees from some places. Right now, by default, they're everywhere. Inside, they fill the whole space of our clutter. So we can choose as a mask one of a mask from our terrain. So any mask, for example, for grass or ground. So you can see how they changing. But for today, I want to create our own mask, just to be sure that I'm fully control the trees placement. So let's press this little plus button, choose the resolution of our mask. For example, I think for 300 by 300 meters terrain, it will be pretty enough if we use 2K. And let's create. Oh, we already have this plants mask folder here. Let's just call this mask tree pine mat2 mask. Okay. And by default, it's completely black. So we need to paint our trees right on the surface of our terrain. And you always can go to Photoshop. I don't like this PSD, and so let's create the new one. For example, let it be TGA or JPEG, just JPEG. Okay, and let's name it again tree pine mat2 imp. Okay, you can just click on show in Explorer, and the window with this asset, with this texture, will be opened, and from here you can just open it in Photoshop. You can change it as you want. For now, let's say I want it to be my trees everywhere, and I can just draw white color all over this texture. Just save it. Okay. And you can see the reimport appeared for a second, and right now we have fully white mask here. And I just can't understand why we don't have any trees right now. Let's try to assign it manually. Yeah, that's okay. And of course, we need to use the same mask texture in our imposter object. So let's put it here. Okay. And you can draw on this mask just by pressing this little button, a little pen button. We have a little window here with some parameters, and if you press the minus button, we can just erase our trees. For example, I don't want this tree to be here. I can just oh sorry, you can just erase it. Yeah. You can change the size of your brush by your mouse wheel, or just by changing this value here. And there's one moment here about this brushing drawing. When we use the same mask image in our imposter and in our mesh clutter both, sometimes you can see that we still have imposter of the tree here, where we erased our geometrical tree. So the fastest way to fix it, just save your world and just reload it, and everything will be fine, as you can see. Because sometimes, or even most times, you have a lot of clutters and imposter objects in your scene, and you don't want to how to say, to disable and enable them manually. So the quickest way, more quick way to fix it is just save your world and reload it, and everything will be fine. What else? Let's duplicate our mesh clutter just to create another type of trees. Let's delete this imposters here, and let's rename it. For now, let it be just pine tree. Right here we can change our mesh file. For example, this one. As you can see, they've been placed at the exact same positions as the first clutter, and we can change it just by clicking randomize button here. Let's change it to the density of this clutter to 0.01, for example, or even maybe, yeah, maybe this will be enough. Okay, and let's find this tree inside of our asset browser. Here we are. We can copy the parameters, delete the FBX, and just do the same for this clutter as we did for the first one. So we can just paste parameters sequentially. And let's try to bake the imposters for it too. Let's disable the first one just to better see the this clutter. Let's select it, Tools, Imposter Creator, and I think we can leave the same parameters here. Let's press Create. Go to Imposters and let's name it Pine Tree Big Imp. Okay. And let's do the same with the visibility distances configuration for this clutter as we did for the first one. So we just can disable the second LOD for all of the surfaces. And enable the lerp feature here too for these imposters. Let's rename it Pine Tree Big. Yeah. And let's try to create some maybe point of interest. For example, I like this little hills here. Let's erase these trees here. I don't want them to be here. Oh, this is not the same. Oh yeah, I just copied it. I don't know how. Okay, I think this will be okay. Oh, but maybe let's erase this one too. Okay, and as I said, it's better to save the world and reload. Yeah, everything will be okay. Let's talk a little bit about some additional features inside the material parameters if we talk about the vegetation and trees. So let's put some different tree here, for example this one. So of course our trees were made with some number of flat geometry, flat planes. We can see it if we go to here and take object wireframe. So every geometry here in this tree has its own normal vectors, and of course we can tune them inside of our 3D software. but we can't get the exact result as in real life, and that's why you can have some how to say, unwanted effects, for example with reflections, with the light behavior, something like this. For example, if we can go to rendering debug buffers, we can choose reflections, and we see that we have reflections on this tree, some unwanted effect, unrealistic reflections. And that's why we have some additional feature here, which called normals rotated to camera. It's just what it does. It just forces the normal vectors of your object, of your mesh, to look straight to your camera anytime or at any angles. So it's a little hack, and it's kind of helpful. There's a question about the problem of the mask image name. Any problem with both clutter and imposters use the same mask image? The same mask image. No, it's no problem. Basically, it's absolutely what we want, because if we create some mesh clutter and then so just geometrical trees, and then we just erased trees in some places, we want imposters to be in the same places as the geometrical trees are. So that's why the same mask image on the imposter object and on the mesh clutter, it's how to say, it's must have, because it's a reason why we use the imposters. Yeah, and mesh clutter, of course, is available in the free InGen version. So one more thing about the vegetation, and how to say, in terms of some optimizations, is about this vegetation velocity. As you can see here, we have some state here. If you go to rendering debug and to velocity buffer, when you start moving, you can see some color information here. This is velocity buffer, which is used in our TAA, or temporal anti-aliasing. And this feature, vegetation velocity, just allows us to sorry, to disable the contribution of our vegetation into the velocity buffer. So it's kind of it will save you a little bit of your performance, but you'll have a little bit blurry effect on the moving objects, on animated objects. For example, in this tree, we have some animated needles here on the spine, but for now, for example, it's barely visible, this blurry effect. That's why we definitely want to disable this vegetation velocity, just to save some performance. But sometimes it can be pretty visible. For example, on some high grass, which moves because of the strong wind, and this blurry effect can become visible, and you just need to keep in mind that it's a good idea to disable this vegetation velocity state if you can do it, if you're happy with your visual. Okay, so let's delete this tree. Okay, so let's put maybe some unique tree here on this hill. We have some pine tree heroic here. Yeah, that will be good. Maybe rotate it a little bit. Actually, I don't like these trees here. Let's just erase them. Okay, let's save the world and reload it. Yeah, more sunny here. Okay, so let's add some assets here. For example, I have some rocks here. Yeah, like this one. Maybe try to copy it, mix it, rotate and scale it a little bit. Okay, this will be fine. So let's copy our rocks just to fulfill our scene. Okay. Sorry. I have prepared some additional rocks outside of this point of interest, just to save some time to us. For example, let's see what we got here. Let's save. What do we have here else? For example, we have some roots here. Let's try to use it. You can change your axis orientation right here if you want to. Okay, that's okay for me. So considering we already started to work with some other assets, we can change some parameters of our world light object, so our sun. Let's just you can always click move to camera, just to, in case you don't want to find this center pivot of your light object. Let's try to maybe change its angle. And as you can see, even if we have our sun how to say, on a very low position closer to horizon, the shadow map, the shadows still they stay very sharp on all of their lengths, and we can deal with it by enabling penumbra in our render settings, shadows, and penumbra mode. As you can see right now it's disabled. Let's change it, for example, to high. And inside of the light source we can add some multiplier to it if we want to. For example, let it be maybe 0.2. Yeah, this will be enough. Okay, so the light acts more correct now, and shadows looks more properly. So let's continue with our assets placement, props placement. So let's add some more, maybe little rocks here, rocky ground too. Yeah, this will be handy. For example, let's put it somewhere here and maybe here too. Okay. Okay, I think we're good. So let's try to add some, maybe to add some trees. Of course, you still can have, you still can add some trees without the mesh clutter. You can put some FBX right from the asset browser, drag it inside of your scene, and you don't worry about it, because later in the end we're gonna bake all of this, how to say, not bake, we're gonna convert our mesh clutters to another object which called mesh cluster. They are nearby each other, as you can see, and I'll tell you later why we need to do it. And when we convert the mesh clutter to mesh cluster, it will be very easy to edit each each tree, each object inside of this cluster, and it will be very easy to bake new objects inside of this mesh clusters. So it's okay if you want to add some manually add some vegetation, some trees beside the mesh clutter. So let's add, for example, tree here. We can just rotate it. Don't like the empty space here. Let's put some trees. Okay. And of course I almost forgot about some additional parameters inside the mesh clusters. So if we choose, for example, this mesh cluster, the first one which we created, you can see some additional parameters here. For example, we can add some spread to our maximum scale, and of course we need to change it inside of our imposter object too, so that it can repeat the same scales of our trees. So let's put it here too. You can change the spread of the scale, you can change the maximum scale, you can change the minimum scale. You can offset vertically your trees, for example, and by default we already have assigned value here. It's rotation by z-axis, and that's it. Let's just change this for the second clutter too. So let's change it to 0.2 and change the same parameter here in the spread inside of the imposter object. Oh, sorry, it's not the same parameter here. Yeah, okay. So let's save our world, and let's maybe try to add some path here just nearby our hill. Let's move these rocks a little bit. Okay. To do that, we need to create additional landscape layer map in the manual mode. We can just select our first landscape layer map, which we are working with right now, and just duplicate it by pressing Ctrl D. Let's rename it, maybe paint it. In our asset browser, we need to press create landscape layer map, and call it, let's name it landscape paint too. And assign this lmap file right here. As you can see right now, we have we got flat heights here. We just need to change the height map blending mode to additive, and everything will be fine. Right now, by using the brushes, we can draw some additional pits or hills, so change the heights of our current terrain, or erase or add some additional information on the masks of your details. So what we're going to do, we can just try to draw some path. Let's choose maybe ground dry. Yes, I remember it's ground dry. Let's press this brush button. Maybe choose this alpha for brush, and let's try to paint. Yeah, okay, this will be fine. You can undo if you don't like the result. Maybe we can use this alpha. Let's see. Yeah, I think this will be better. Okay, let's change it to 5 meters. So let's draw, no, 4 meters will be enough. Let's draw some path. Yeah, even 4 meters. I think the path is too wide. Let's change it to 2 meters. So let's continue. I'm still not happy with its width. Okay, 3 meters will be enough. Let's try it. Maybe add another one path here. Yeah. Okay. This will be okay. And of course we can press Ctrl to reverse our brush. For example, let's change some heights here. Let's choose the height map here, and by pressing Ctrl and drawing here, we will decrease the height here along the path. I think we need to increase the size of our brush a little bit. Oh, sorry, I haven't pressed Ctrl. And we always can blur a little bit the heights or the masks. So let's try to choose this alpha and try to blur the heights a little bit. Maybe it's too much. You can undo this and change the intensity of smoothing. For example, something like this. Okay. Okay, that's fine. So right now let's try to add some plants, smaller plants here. For example, what do we have here? I have some fern. Yeah, for example, fern wild. Okay, this one. Let's try to use this one. We can basically create again the mesh clutter. Choose our fern here. configure the size of the clutter for maybe 300 by 300, just as our first terrain, first landscape layer map. Put it inside of our terrain, of course, so it will be able to intersect with our terrain. Let's rename it Fern1 clutter. And let's copy the parameters from the FBX. So select every surface inside of this FBX, copy parameters, delete this FBX, and just paste parameters sequentially. And can disable and enable intersection just to intersect well. And let's create our own mask, its own mask for the fern. Let's press plus, 2K resolution, okay. Data, plants mask, okay. Let's name it Fern1. Let's change it to JPEG, okay. And we can start to draw these ferns. Let's change threshold to 0, and let's change our density to maybe 3 will be enough. Let's see. Yeah, it will be okay. 3 will be okay. Maybe a little bit less even. So okay, let's see. And I created the second fern clutter in advance, so let's put it here. Let's just find it. Yeah, here, Fern2. So it's just the second type of the fern. Let's add some additional props here. For example, we have some stump here. Let's put it somewhere here maybe. Okay. Add some ferns near it, next to it. What do we have else? We have some old trunks. Let's add them too. For example, here. Okay. Okay. And maybe another one. So it's almost the same. Oh, sorry. I wanted to choose this particular fern and add some additional fern here. Okay. And I prepared some rowan clutter, so it's just some bushes, as you can see, and we can just we can just try to erase those plants where we don't want them to be. For example, here. Okay, this will be okay. So let's talk about the translucent objects. So for now, we only use the standard. So let me just rotate my sun a little bit. So we can better see this effect. Okay. For now, all of these objects, all of these plants, they use the standard translucent parameter here. But for better looking, we can go to settings, subsurface scattering. We can enable screen space subsurface scattering. It's a little bit, or maybe a lot of expensive on performance, but and it's a good idea. You're almost supposed to keep the resolution of all screen space effects in Unigine in a half resolution. It will be a good idea. But right now I just don't see the reason why I can't use the full resolution. And it's also a very good idea to keep interleaved enabled, interleaved rendering of this effect enabled. You barely can see the difference, so keep it enabled. It will save some performance to you. And let's go to global illumination and enable SSAO, ambient occlusion. Everything will look much better. And we have some additional features here like SSGI and bend normal. And these features works only with this screen space ray tracing. Let's enable it, and everything started to look much better. So let's add some dense grass, dense plants. So let's save the world first, and then go to, for example, this clutter. Let's duplicate it, rename it as Blackberry. So remember Blackberry. It will be a Blackberry clutter. Let's choose our FBX, our mesh file. Vegetation, Blackberry mesh. Here we are. Let's create our own mask image. So we can delete this by pressing this cross button. Let's press plus, 2K resolution, okay. Data, yeah. Let's name our mask image as Blackberry. Choose JPEG, okay. And let's try to maybe change the density. So let's try to paint it and see what we got. Oh, first of all, yeah, we need to assign the material on it and copy all of the parameters from the FBX file. We can go here copy parameters, delete this FBX, select our clutter, select all of the surfaces and paste parameters sequentially. And first of all, I think I want to increase the maximum size of it, maybe 1.5, and maybe some spread to it, and maybe 1.4. And let's continue drawing it. Maybe 1.2. Let's see. Yeah, this will be good enough. I would definitely need to erase some ferns here. Let's do this quickly. Okay, let's continue with the BlackBerry. Maybe let's increase the density 2 times. Yeah. One more thing about this smaller plants, for example, was about this fern. Every clutter can be oriented with the based on the normal vectors of the surface of your terrain. For example, you can see the difference if we put if we check the orientation here. Sometimes it looks better. Of course, you don't want to use it within with your trees, but sometimes it starts to look kind of better. Let's put some tree here. I don't like this empty space here. Let's put the tree right here and maybe rotate it a little bit. Okay. And I have some prepared small plants here. I don't know what it's just some small leaves. They just add some diversity to the vegetation here. Okay, let's save our world. Yeah, it starts to look better. Let's work on the skies. Right now we don't have any clouds or something like that. We can just use some environment map. I prepared one already. So go to settings, environment, and just assign your environment map here. Let's see what we've got here. Oh, we almost fit it to the sun, so let's leave it like this. We can add some maybe dead branches or sticks on our path. So let's again save our world. Let's duplicate one of our clutters, rename it as for example dead branches, and choose another mesh. Don't remember. Oh yeah, dead branches FBX. For example, this one. We can copy the parameters just like that. Oh, actually, it just has only material on it, so let's do it manually. Dead branches. No, why not? Okay, branches ground. Yeah, that's okay. And let's just disable this mask here and try to maybe use one of our terrain masks, for example, grass or ground. Okay, ground will be okay. Let's decrease our density, maybe, and our maximum scale. Yeah, this will be fine. Let's adjust visibility distance. For example, let it be 15 and 5. And we can duplicate our clutter and use another FBX of these branches and randomize it. Okay, this will be fine. Maybe too much. Let's try to decrease density a little bit. Something like this. Okay, so right now we don't have a very correct lighting. I mean global illumination, spreaded light. We can try to achieve a better result with some probes. So let's try to create lights, sphere projection environment probe, and okay, let it be 100 by 100 by 100, and let's bake it. What we will get from this probe? First of all, it's reflections, proper reflections, and the second one, as you can see, the reflections became how to say, more correct. And we have some ambient part of this probe here. It will be darker right now, but you can try to fake this GI and try to increase the intensity of it. But the best way to achieve the proper global illumination in your forest scene will be the voxel probe. So create light voxel probe let's change the size to the same numbers, 100 by 100 by 100, or maybe we don't want this to be those high, let's say, I don't know, 40. And of course, we will spend a lot of time baking this probe if we use this voxel size. So it's always better when you change the voxel size as less as you can. For example, 0.5 meters will be absolutely enough for this scene, but it will be too much time to wait until it will be baked. So let's try to change it, I don't know, for 3 meters. Okay, and try to bake it. We can try to bake it now, but there's one thing about this global elimination baking. It tries to act as realistic as possible, so it bakes everything that it sees. So first of all, I wanted to create some volumetric sun shafts, light shafts. So let's create wait a minute, volume, yeah, box shaft, and let's change it to the same values, 100 by 100 by 100. Let's create a child material for it, enable the height dependency here, and let's try to tune our material for those shafts. Okay, let's say I'm happy with it. Let's leave it like this. And now we can bake our light voxel probe and see what we will get. Let's save our world first. Let's bake it. Yes, you can create a probe for all of your space, but of course, if you have a giant project, a giant scene, it's always a better idea to use environment probes and try to fake the global illumination. But as you can see right now, I'm using the voxel probe with the size of one voxel, 3 meter voxel, and it's just, how to say, it depends again on your project requirements, because this voxel probe right now I can scroll these parameters while it's baking, but in a few seconds I will show you how much video memory it takes to use this kind of a probe. Okay, let's see what we got here. As you can see, right now we have a more proper global illumination for our forest. And of course, it's not ideal and it's not perfect because, come on, we have 3 meter size voxel. So we can fake it by, for example, decreasing the intensity of the voxel probe a little bit, maybe something like this. And this will be better already. Okay, and in terms of the size, right now it's just about 1 megabyte, but as you can see, if I change the voxel size value here from 3 to 1 meters. It's already 18 megabytes. And right, if I choose it to 0.5 as a default, already almost 150 megabytes of video memory, and it's just 100 by 100 meters. So of course, voxel probes, how to say, they were made mostly for the interiors, but you can mix them, as I just did, for your outdoor scenes. Mix them with the environment probes and try to fake some intensity and color, and it's not very hard, not very difficult to achieve a pretty good looking result with them. So so let's try to add some post effects. For example, if we go to screen space materials, we can press plus button next to the post text here, post label, and choose, for example, post color correction. I just created this material inside the asset browser, and we can choose it now. And inside the parameters of this post color correction, inside parameters of this material, we can see that it has some chromatic aberration and noise intensity. And it's just one of these past materials you can create. So let's try to use a little bit of this aberration, for example 0.1. Maybe let's add another just simple ordinary grass. I think I have one here, someone. Yeah, grass clutter, FBX, for example, grass high. And we can copy the parameters and paste them here. Change the visibility distances here, for example 3.1, 3.1 and 15.3, and create our own mask image. And just try to add some additional grass if you want to. We can change, of course, maximum scale here. Okay, I think that's enough. Oh, one more thing about this, the translucent objects. Inside the render settings, inside the shadows, we have this translucence depth parameter, which how to say, which represent the distance of the light that the distance that the light can pass through the translucent objects. For example, 0.05, as I remember, is 5 centimeters. And you can see the difference in real time. Sometimes it's useful when you have not only vegetation but some translucent object, like, I don't know, some voxy objects, and you don't want to use the subsurface scattering. So I think that's it. What do you mean? Is it possible to use different voxel map? What do you mean different? One voxel for site or zone? Well, I think one. Oh yeah, I think I got it. I got it. Yeah, okay. It's totally okay. It's totally normal. If you have, for example, if you have few buildings that are placed on some big area, some big terrain or landscape, of course you can use several voxel maps, voxel probes. Yeah, inside of your project. Each building, for example, will have its own voxel probe, so it's totally okay. Yeah. So okay. We have some time. we have a little time left. If maybe do you have any additional questions? Is it possible to save the mask paint? You mean the mask inside of a mesh clutter? Well, when you paint on it, you just changing it. So as you can see, it was just a black square, and we painted some white dots on it, and it has been saved. So yeah. Oh no, if you're talking about the terrain, we, as you remember, we created what is, yeah, we created a separate landscape map for it in the purpose of what you are saying. So to not to lose all of this painted manually painted data. As you can see, if I disable this, we'll lose all of our additional data which we painted manually, but I can enable it back, and we created LMap here in Asset Browser, and you can observe it right here, so it's saved on your hard disk. And if you you don't have to regenerate this LMap which we created exactly for the manual painting. You can reimport these layer maps where all the masks, all the heights are stored, and that's why we need to create this separate landscape LMap to save all of our work if we would like to re-import these layers. So any more questions? You're welcome. Okay, if we don't have any additional questions, So I think that's it for today. Thank you very much for your attention, and see you soon, I hope. So thank you very much again. Bye.